Hi, now we are going to work on the quotient of powers, which is just another word for dividing. Again, this is another rule that we have already looked at last unit when we were factoring. Factoring was the inverse of multiplying the distributive. We were trying to figure out how we could take the standard form and write it as two factors. That is a way factoring, which is a form of dividing. So you have already been doing that. How we did it, it looked like this. I gave you an example of 3x to the third power minus 6x to the second power. And then I asked you to factor that out. We looked at it and we found the GCF. GCF is greatest common factor. So you looked at it and you said, well, 3 goes into both 3 and 6. So 3 is my GCF. And then you took the smallest exponent, which is x squared. And that was the GCF that we wrote out front. And then what we did is we divided each term to figure out what would go inside the parentheses here. Some of you wrote it out underneath, which was a great strategy, which shows that we are basically dividing. So you put the GCF underneath like that. And then you looked at it and you said, well, 3 divided by 3 is 1. Some of you wrote the 1, some of you didn't. 3 minus 2 is 1. So you had x. And then minus 6 divided by 3 is 2. And the x is canceled. And that was our factor. So now we're going to use that exact same rule that you have been doing, except we're formally writing it as a rule. And it looks a little bit like this. So when dividing, all you are doing is subtracting your exponents. Again, remember they have to have the same base, which means that larger size number or letter needs to be the same in order to be able to simplify it. So remember when there's not a number, what is that number? 1, correct. So I would put to the first power. So here, this one would be y to the 6 minus 1. 6 minus 1 is 5, so this is y to the 5th power. The next two examples gives you a really good example of the difference between a base and a coefficient. Here, the larger size number, the base, is 6. 6 is not considered the coefficient because it is not out front. Here, it is the coefficient because it is the number out in front. It has no exponent on it. Those are our coefficients. For this one, I treat it just like I did the y's over here, and I'm going to write it as 6. This is 13 minus 2. What is that? 11. Very good. 6 to the 11th. So 6 to the 11th, you could go ahead and put in your calculator, and it will give you a number, or we could leave it like this. We're going to leave it like this for now since we're practicing simplifying. Okay. On the next one, you would have to divide your coefficients. As you could see, 10 divided by 15 would be a small decimal. So here you would simplify your fraction. For those of you who are really good with numbers, you should be asking yourself, how do I simplify this? 5 goes into both of them, so 10 divided by 5 is 2. 15 divided by 5 is 3, and I simplified it. If you are not strong with your numbers and seeing your GCFs, don't worry. I taught you how to use your calculators. All you would have to do is put 10 divided by 15 into your calculator and hit that FD button. And then that will give you 2/3 as well. So then A's would stick together. You have A to the 7 and A to the 5th. So that's 7 minus 5. They are not always going to be lined up as nicely as they are. Sometimes they try to trick you and change the order. Just remember, A's go with A's, B's go with B's, X's together, and so forth. Here, this would be B minus B, 9 minus 9. Okay, so that would end up being 2 to the A to the second. And then B, 9 minus 9 is 0. And we just don't include it. If you notice, here would have been where it cancels out. That is dividing quotient. Please try the next slide with an example of how to do this. Thank you very much.